The next item on the agenda is the debate on infringements of human rights and the rule of law. The first point is the case of Nadiya Savchenko.
Nadiya Savchenko is a military pilot and member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. In June 2014, she was captured by the Russians and illegally transferred to Russia. According to the Geneva Convention, she is a prisoner of war. Nadiya cannot be prosecuted because this case is a case of war using balloon and needs to be tried by an independent tribunal, not by the Russians. Nadiya Savchenko is on hunger strike. She's been on hunger strike for 3 months, protesting against her illegal arrest. Her health is getting worse day after day, and we demand that she be released as soon as possible. We demand on Russia to respect the fact that she is a member of the Parliament of the Assembly of the Council of Europe, and to respect its international commitments. We do not think Russia will do that. The Russian Federation does not observe the law. We saw that. We saw how it invaded eastern Ukraine. Putin does not observe the law, does not have any respect of human life, does not respect anything and anyone. He's just thirsty for power and wants Russia to become the second world power. But why does Putin need yet another victim alongside all the others who were tortured, kidnapped and killed?
Detention of Nadiya Savchenko is unlawful and inhumane. Minsk agreements must be respected in full. 61 members of this House were pointing this out still back on 17th of October of last year, when we co-signed the first public appeal to President Putin. In addition, for the last 3 months, on every single day, yet another member of the European Parliament is sending a letter to the Russian ambassador in Brussels. 60 letters have been sent up to now. It is not that we expect getting any kind of reply. What we expect is Russia to act in a civilized and European manner of the 21st century. It is appalling that President Putin chooses to keep Nadiya Savchenko detained as his personal prisoner. As a consequence, Savchenko list, just like Magnitsky list, are becoming tools of dealing with Putin's Russia. And this is very sad. Thank you.
We all know what happened in Eastern Europe recently. Russia seized Crimea. Russia also supported and supports the separatists from eastern Ukraine. You know, in each and any case, breaking the international law, not respecting the international law, and treaties that Russia previously signed. How is it possible in the 21st century to have such situations in which a country that we were cooperating with, a country that is involved in the international affairs so much, a country which is a member of the Security Council of the United Nations, doesn't respect the international law? It seems that we have to appeal to the, I don't know to whom, to the United Nations, or to which organizations in order to free Nadiya Savchenko?
Thank you. The Nadiya Savchenko case should never actually have happened. As a member of the Ukrainian army, she was kidnapped by so-called separatist units. She was interrogated in conditions which Russia denies, and in a state which is not involved in this military conflict. So she has been in prison now for almost a year, with the status of prisoner of war. This is a breach of the convention, and it's contrary to international law. It's the fact that Nadiya Savchenko finds her life in danger, and that her health is deteriorating rapidly. This is why we must speak out for the immediate release of Nadiya Savchenko.
In the Eastern Archive of the Polish Charter Center, we can consult the testimonies of Polish soldiers of the National Army who fought against the German army during the Second World War, and during the investigation and interrogation of one of them, which took place when the free world was already enjoying the post-Yalta freedom, in the second half of 1944, he said, "We will not kill you, we will send you to those places where you will willingly want to die yourselves. You will wish to die." These were Stalin times, but currently the situation in Russia is a simple and straight continuation of that situation of yesteryear. It is confirmed by Vladimir Putin, and Nadiya Savchenko is a prisoner within this system. As we support this resolution, we must be aware of the fact that this is not yet all. We must not just look at our high hopes post-Minsk, similar to post-Yalta.
My group very strongly supports this resolution, and I would echo the comments made by a number of previous colleagues and very much share them. The situation of Ms. Savchenko is outrageous and, crucially, entirely within the control of the Russian authorities. She is also emblematic, and it's important to remember that she's not alone. She's not the only illegally held Ukrainian national within Russia. Director Oleg Sentsov is in a similar situation, and there are others. These are all covered within the Minsk agreements, and let us be clear, Russia is in breach of the Minsk agreements. Ms. Savchenko is being illegally held, and we must demand our member states' leaders and foreign ministers play a much more vocal role within these discussions and raise her case and others at the next meeting of the contact group. I hope, Commissioner, you will take these points on board. Thank you.
Do you believe that detainment of Ms. Savchenko is something that is illegal, that breaches human rights, and that proves that she, being captured in Moscow, her case shows clearly that Russia is involved in Ukraine? Thank you.
Bene, io credo, collega.
Well, thank you for that question. It's my belief that, unfortunately, we use the discussions on human rights really to play political cards. And it depends on the nation involved, how we play the game. Obviously, this condemnation against Russia is blown up hugely. You talk about other states who are partners who infringe just as much. Well, let's leave that aside. That's what I was saying. We should have a level playing field for everybody.
So, we ask that the President of this Assembly turns to Mr. President Putin so that Nadiya Savchenko can be freed and can find liberty and return to her country of Ukraine.
I share your satisfaction that the European Parliament can finally speak on the case of Nadiya Savchenko. She has seen her health deteriorate rapidly, and she was recently admitted urgently to hospital, and according to her lawyer, she wasn't treated well. Nadiya was detained by the Russian authorities, and obviously for political reasons. The evidence they've cited is a joke. It can all be refuted. We're waiting for a trial, and this has been going for months, which is embarrassing for a country which thinks of itself as a great power. This House should send a powerful message straight to the leaders of the Kremlin. President, what is the point of locking this woman up? What's the point of this for Russia? Nadiya Savchenko has become a symbol, and you know that you can't break symbols.
Thank you, President. Commissioner. Nadiya Savchenko was in a Ukrainian soldier peace mission to Iraq, part of the Ukrainian forces there. Now she's a member of the PACE with the concomitant privileges and diplomatic privileges. This is a political crime. It infringes a human rights agreement which was signed, the fundamental rights agreement signed by Russia itself.
Honorable Commissioner, we are here because of Nadiya Savchenko, a woman who served in the army of her country, and as a pilot she committed no other crime than defending the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Her dragging to another country and her holding prisoner in Russia is an unprecedented breach of international law. She was dragged away from the territory of the sovereign state of Ukraine, whose countries are and should be untouchable. Her parliamentary immunity is not not respected, as well as her membership in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. She is being forced to confess that she got into Russia illegally on her own, and in exchange for this forced confession she is offered clemency. She is being subjected to psychiatric treatment, which is still being used as a tool of state oppression, much as it was in the dark ages of Stalinism. This terroristic abduction and torture of a citizen of another country connected to forcing a confession before trial is worthy of the strongest condemnation. The international law and human rights are an untouchable principle of our civilization, and Russia must be forced to respect them.
The kidnapping and illegal detention of Ukrainian officer Nadiya Savchenko, despite the widespread international protest, is really a cynical and inhuman gesture by the Russian Federation. It's clear that Russia is violating the Geneva Convention, and also it is not fulfilling its responsibilities taken by Minsk agreements. But Nadiya Savchenko is an extreme case, but not the only one. It is quite typical for the Russian present regime.
The history of Nadiya Savchenko is the history of contemporary heroism and an example of helplessness on the part of Ukraine and the Western countries when faced with Russia's activities, because this case is a breach of all international human rights standards.
Nadiya Savchenko was captured by pro-Russian separatists in the east of Ukraine while trying to get a wounded man off the battlefield. She is now being tried for crimes she did not commit, and although Russia claims she is not participating in this war, Nadiya Savchenko and some other cases show the opposite. The European Parliament mentioned this at the beginning of the year with the resolution on the topic of Ukraine, but Nadiya Savchenko was not released until today, and this case reminds me of the Croatian war veteran Veljko Maric.
Since June 2014, Nadiya Savchenko has been imprisoned without any accusation put to her. The Russian prosecution haven't brought any accusation. The European Convention on Human Rights requires that there should get a fair trial. Russia signed that. The Minsk agreements, 12th of February, on freeing all prisoners taken in Ukraine. There should be an exchange of prisoners. She's also part of PACE, and she has diplomatic protection. Her health has gone down. Nadiya Savchenko is really suffering.
138 days have passed since Nadiya Savchenko started a hunger strike in protest against her illegal detention in Russia. Let me be very clear from the outset and convey once again in front of this House the message that we have repeatedly delivered to Russian interlocutors. Russia should immediately release Mrs. Savchenko. First, let us recall that Mrs. Savchenko was captured in Ukraine by Russian-backed separatists. She was subsequently formally charged last Friday by the Russian Investigation Committee of being complicit in the death of 2 Russian journalists. The material evidence pointing to her innocence was never allowed to be produced in court. It is absurd to charge her with illegally crossing the border when she was already captive before being transferred to Russia.
I'm very happy to hear that we have a unified voice across all the groups in this chamber and that we all agree that Nadiya Savchenko should be released. This story shows us clearly how much Russia infringes against international law or international agreements and its own internal law, by the way, because the way that judicial proceedings are carried out in Russia is in direct conflict with its own law. We see that the arrest of Ms. Savchenko is in contradiction to international law. There is no intention to carry out a fair trial for her. And whoever says that we should let the Russian courts decide, he is being simply naive, because had the Russian Federation wanted to resolve this case, it would have been resolved a long time ago, and she could have been released a long time ago as well. So if this is supposed to be a monster trial, Ms. Savchenko is its victim, and it is very good that we are about to adopt a resolution on behalf of her. Thank you.